The ever-fascinating Neil deGrasse Tyson joins us from Norway.
I'm an educator, so when I see people making decisions that seem underinformed to me, then I say maybe they didn't learn this in school. And so if you're going to pull out of the Paris Climate Accord, it must mean that you don't fully understand the long-term consequences of that. At every moment where you see anti-science sentiment or science denialism, there is a resistance movement that rises up to confront it. So it's not going unanswered, and I think that's hopeful going forward. It's hard to argue against the possibility that all of us are not just the creation of some kid in a parent's basement programming up a world for their own entertainment.
Plus, do you have a secret talent? You could do that.
I'm a great fan of calligraphy.
All next on Larry King Now. Welcome to Larry King Now. We're in beautiful Trondheim, Norway, at the Starmus Festival here in this fabulous city. And for the third time, we welcome the inimitable Neil deGrasse Tyson to the show, astrophysicist, author, great communicator of science, and now the recipient of the Stephen Hawking Medal. His newest book, a runaway bestseller, is Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. Are you surprised at how well that book's doing?
Yeah, I think so. Well, I'm delighted, I should say. Had it showed up anywhere on the bestseller list, that's just a triumph for science, whether or not I wrote it. But for it to show up there and debut at #1 on the New York Times list was like, whoa. Among all of these sort of political memoirs, and there's always typically a sports biography, and there's or celebrity tell-all, and there it is, and it landed. I say maybe there's more of an appetite for science out there than we've admitted to ourselves.
We're both here for the Starmus Festival. I spoke a couple of panels. You were on one of the panels. Yeah. How do you explain this festival? It's a combination of what, the stars and jazz and rock?
Yeah, Starmus as a word is the mashup of stars and music. And the organizer of it, Garrick Israelian, he's a fellow astrophysicist, by the way, but he works in Europe. He was good friends with Brian May, the lead guitarist of Queen. And I don't know if you know, Brian May has a PhD in astrophysics. And this festival is a reminder that perhaps creativity is not so divided between science and art. And in fact, I think you could argue strongly that science and art are the greatest expressions of human creativity that civilization has put forth.
I'm amazed at the kind of people here. What an amazing and you got the Stephen Hawking Medal. Now, I have interviewed Stephen 3 or 4 times. What did it mean to you to get that medal?
Well, so we're reminded that Stephen Hawking is not only a brilliant scientist, but he himself has committed so much of his life, time and effort to bringing the universe down to Earth. I guess we can start that time clock with A Brief History of Time, a runaway bestseller from back, I guess, was it the 80s or if not early 90s? And he's done TV shows, he's written multiple books.
With ALS.
With ALS, or whatever version he has that he can still live as long as he does. But obviously he's a quadriplegic. Right now he guides his communication through his eyes, because he can still control what his eyes look at. There's a screen in front of him. And so it's just stunning that first he has the stamina for all that he creates and produces, but also to receive a medal in his name. I think the honor of any award is established by the legacy of either who created it or others who have won it before you. And so I don't take this lightly. I take it as an affirmation that somebody was paying attention.
Are you pushing against the tide? Isn't there a kind of large anti-intellectual movement in America?
Yeah, and I wonder if it was always there, but now with excellent search engines, you can find everyone else who's just as anti-science as you and band together and have you end up looking like you're larger than you actually are. One thing that is promising is that at almost every moment where you see anti-science sentiment or science denialism. There is a resistance movement that rises up to confront it. So almost every place you see it. So it's not going unanswered, and I think that's hopeful going forward.
Are you encouraged by the fact that the Trump administration didn't cut the budget for NASA?
Well, there was some weirdness in there. Yes, the budget was not cut. We were delighted to hear that he's a fan of space, but there was talk at some point of we'll keep the budget there or top it off, but we have to remove Earth science from it. And that actually had appeared in NASA's original charter back in 1958, that it would study Earth as well as the planets and the stars. So if you take away Earth, and Earth is the system that supports us, our life and our livelihood, I don't know what the consequences of that. So you have to watch was the sheep in clothing? How's that expression go?
Wolf in sheep's
Wolf. I'm a city kid.
Me too, but I know that one.
You know that one. A wolf in sheep's clothing. So my hope was always with the Trump administration. He's a businessman. Business people, you expect them to make decisions that are sort of simple and blunt regarding money, for example. And any good business person knows that you need a healthy flow of money into the R&D part of your company to assure survival and competitiveness going forward. So it seems to me he ought to be responsive to an argument such as, by the way, investments in science, technology, engineering, and math, the STEM fields, as a nation will help America, Inc. to thrive and compete in the out years when the fruits of these investments arrive. And that's a business statement. Forget the politics. You can make that just as a simple business argument.
No.
And my hope is that some part of him can listen to that.
You said recently, if I and my advisors had never learned what science is or why it works, I'd consider pulling out of the Paris Climate Accords too. Are you saying that it was ridiculous to pull out of those accords?
I'm an educator. That was a tweet that you recited there. I'm an educator, so when I see people making decisions that seem underinformed to me, then I say maybe they didn't learn this in school or no one taught them after school. And so if you're going to pull out of the Paris Climate Accord, it must mean that you don't fully understand the long-term consequences of that. I'm thinking, and if you don't, where do we learn those long-term consequences? From a fluency in science and technology and the causes and effects of things, the consequences of your actions and the consequences of your inactions. And people hardly ever talk about inaction, because what does a journalist do? What did you do and what consequences came from it? Rarely do they say, what didn't you do and what consequences came from it? That's not a story. People don't write about what didn't happen relative to what then happens later. So my sense was that maybe not enough people who were making that decision knew or understood how science works and what it is. By the way, if they did understand science and still made that decision, for me that's actually a little more understandable. They just said, we choose not to care. But at least be honest and say that, because that takes the argument in a whole other regime.
We'll be right back with Neil deGrasse Tyson right after this. His book, Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. We're at the Starmus Festival in Norway. Don't go away. We're back with Neil deGrasse Tyson. We're at the Starmus Festival in the beautiful city. What a city this is.
Beautiful.
Trondheim, Norway. You recently tweeted, we all want to make America great again, but that won't happen until we first make America smart again. Are you saying that Trump isn't smart?
I don't invest much energy criticizing politicians. Politicians are the duly elected representatives of an electorate that put them there. So you can say all you want about the politician, but there's still the matter of all the people who voted for him. And so starters. Now, you look around in the last few years and you see the rise of people say, oh, Earth is flat, or there is no climate change, or, and I'm thinking something's not clicking out there. There's some absence of knowledge and wisdom and insight that can come to you if you, as a minimum, understand, for example, what science is and how and why it works, because that is shaping civilization before our eyes. So I said that, but as an educator, if you're and smart, I don't even like the word smart. I prefer, it made a better tweet, but my preferred word would be, you can't make America great again until America becomes curious again about what we don't know, about the unknown. And when you're curious, there's something that's not quite right, you investigate it. And then you find the answer yourself. You become a self-driven learner. Then everyone rises up on their own, on the wings of curiosity that we all had as children. And we have to reinvigorate that as adults. And then when someone says something to you that's a little off, you say, I'm going to check on that. I'm going to investigate it. And you don't get handed your opinions by others.
Is religion your enemy?
No. I mean, there are factions of most religions, especially the monotheistic religions, that make statements about the physical world. In particular, you have Genesis in the Bible, for example. And if you want to take Genesis as literal truth, yeah, we got a problem with you. You don't understand the actual universe if you're referencing biblical Genesis as your understanding of nature. But that's not the majority of religious people. You have an entire enlightened class of religious people for whom religion provides their spiritual fulfillment and their spiritual enlightenment, and they're not referencing their Bible, the Torah, the Quran. They're not going back to it to get an answer to their science quiz. So they're drawing a line in the sand. In fact, what's the number? It's 60% of scientists in the United States pray to God. Pray. Did I say, excuse me, 40% of Western scientists, and the spread goes below that and above that, obviously, that's just the average. But that's not zero. That's my point. If it's not zero and you're a productive scientist, then the answer is there does not have to be conflict between the two, because empirically, there are people for whom there isn't. So that's the answer.
Elon Musk and Stephen Hawking have sounded the alarm on artificial intelligence. Mr. Musk called superintelligence humanity's greatest threat. You agree?
Yeah, I am fearless of AI. And I'm an outlier, and I recognize this. And you might even say, well, if I studied the problem more deeply, I would be as afraid as others, perhaps. But in my life, I've probably written 10,000 lines of computer code. I have some street cred in just conducting the science that I've done in my life. What I can tell you is when we imagine these AIs, we're thinking of some humanoid thing, as though the human form is something to emulate. No, no. If you have AI, you're going to task AI in very specific ways. If you go back to the era of the Jetsons, here's what they would imagine. Oh, instead of having you drive the car, have your robot drive the car. They're not thinking, have the car drive the car. So the car then is an expression of AI at some level. And so we parcel the AI. The Hubble telescope is an expression of AI. We program it and it does it. They're all worried about the general intelligence AI, where it can deduce, make decisions that you never programmed it to make. And I think that's a kind of cool thing, if it can do that. I don't have a problem with it. And if it gets out of line, if it judges humans are a virus in this world in need of extermination, in America, you could just shoot it. I can unplug it. I mean, I'm just bring it on. I'm ready for it. And on top of that, they're assuming in some parts of it that AI will achieve consciousness and thereby be self-driven. But we don't even understand our own consciousness. You're going to tell me we're going to create a machine that on its own achieves consciousness when we don't even understand it in ourselves? No.
Stop making so much sense.
I'm chill. I'm totally chill with. Is that even still a hip thing to say?
We'll be right back. Black guy from the Bronx, Jewish guy from Brooklyn, sitting here in Trondheim, Norway. We'll be right back. We're back. We're at the Starmus Festival in Trondheim, Norway. If you ever get a chance to come here, do so. We're with Neil deGrasse Tyson And the book is Astrophysics for People in a Hurry, and he won the coveted Stephen Hawking Medal, a great honor, and a great watch goes with it.
Oh, yeah, they gave me a watch. Yeah, you got to ask me what time it is. No one does that anymore because everyone has their own cell phone.
I still do it.
You got...
I got a watch and I look at the watch. Are you surprised at your celebrity?
Yes, I'm surprised. I'm more intrigued by it, is how I would say it. It happened slowly enough so that it wasn't one of these overnight things. And so here's how I ended up measuring it. Not how many times you're in the paper or how big is your name. I measured it by how many strangers in a day want to come up and get your autograph in the old days. Today, it would be a selfie. It started out maybe 5 a month, maybe 20 years ago, 5 a month. And then it became 2 or 3 a day, and then 10 a day. And then so you just watch it go up. Now it's several hundred a day. And for me, yes, so I lose privacy with that. But it's self-inflicted, right? I could just walk away tomorrow or never have done it. So I can't sit here and complain about it. But what I can say is that there's a side effect where I now feel obligated to be a little better groomed before I leave in the morning. So I shave a little more. My clothes are a little more pressed. I smell a little better. Because once you hug for a selfie, out of respect for the picture they're trying to get with you. So an extra 15 minutes a day has been subtracted from my life for this bit of vanity.
What part of your study of astrophysics did Stephen Hawking play?
Stephen Hawking is a physicist. He's best known for his work concerning the universe. There's a lot of physics that has nothing to do with the universe, right, broadly speaking. So there's surely people who have the interest and energy to do what I'm doing in whatever is their field. But maybe the press calls them a little less often because they don't feel that urge. Because I can say, well, the universe flinched yesterday. There was an eclipse. 2 black holes collided. We discovered exoplanets. There might be microorganisms in the hidden oceans beneath a frozen surface of Jupiter's moon, Europa. These are news stories that cascade down from our telescopes and from our laboratories and from our computers. And I don't know if I'm biased, but it seems to me that the public has a deep curiosity for what's going on when they look up.
And Hawking contributed.
And yes, so he made major discoveries related to black holes. He basically brought black holes into a next generation of understanding. In fact, there's a kind of energy that emanates from a black hole that bears his name. It's called Hawking radiation. And we're in Norway. I guess they give the Peace Nobel Prize here, but the Nobel Prize, he's surely done enough work to get a Nobel Prize.
You would think.
Yeah, if he doesn't get one, I'd be disappointed. But you know what I think? I think he's transcended the Nobel Prize. Same with Einstein. If you talk about Einstein, he did this, the relativity. You don't then say, did you know he won a Nobel Prize? That's anticlimactic compared to what he actually accomplished at that level. So he may transcend all awards he could possibly be given.
We do a few if you only knew questions. This is a little fun.
I love them.
Who would
I can look silly if I don't get it.
Could be anything you like.
Okay.
Who would you trade places with for a day?
Oh, in every way, Isaac Newton. I'd want to feel how he thinks about the world, because I can read what he's written about how he thinks, but I want to get inside his head, because he was plugged into the operations of nature like no one else.
Do you have a secret talent? You could do that.
I'm a great fan of calligraphy.
What's a guilty pleasure you have?
I'm a foodie, and my wife and I, we go to restaurants slightly more expensive than we should be paying just to see if there's a dish that might reveal itself to us that we would then emulate. And I buy the wine that's slightly more expensive than it should be, because maybe it'll be something transcendent. So the guilty pleasure is reaching a little further into the pleasures of life.
What should we all be paying more attention to?
The consequences of our action, not only on others, but on the fate of civilization itself.
Oddest fan encounter?
Someone came up to me and wanted me to sign a frozen pig heart. You asked. You asked. Don't look at me like that. You asked the strangest encounter.
Happens to me all the time. What is so unusual about that? Frozen pig heart? There's a million of them here in Trondheim.
So it was shrink wrapped. So I was signing the plastic casing of it, and I think it was a medical student that I don't know what they were doing, but that was.
I think.
That was like one of the oddest. There are other odd things, but that was the oddest thing.
That's pretty. You think it was a medical student? I think it was an inmate. Something you wish you were better at.
Oh, I wish I was better at music. I mean, I'm a really great listener, and I'm a very careful listener, and I love music. If I could compose music, perform music, maybe as a first step, can possibly compose it later. In another life, I would be the librettist for Broadway musicals.
Oh yeah. Strangest job you ever had?
For the full package of paying the college tuition, there would be a work-study program, and you get a grant and a loan. And in there, I cleaned dormitory bathrooms for a year and a half. And what was a little odd is I'm cleaning the bathrooms of fellow students, and so that was just.
What school?
It was at Harvard.
You cleaned bathrooms at Harvard?
Yes,
you didn't have a scholarship?
Yes, I did. Well, no, so I wasn't poor enough to be completely scholarship covered. So if they judge how much money you have and your capacity to pay, they say, we'll take this much from you and we'll cobble together the rest of the tuition by the rest of this. I have later learned that they no longer have students cleaning the bathrooms of other students. It creates an awkward dynamic in your social life and the culture of the town. So it's not odd, but it was just for what it was a little weird.
Is there something you long believed to be true and then realized wasn't?
You know what it is? I'll tell you what it was. Because I calculated this. I thought it would take 9 seconds to cook a pizza on the windowsill if you were on the planet Venus. Because Venus is 900 degrees Fahrenheit. Take a pizza, put on a whistle, close the window, cooks in 9 seconds. I calculated this. The temperature of Venus, the density of the air, and then I find out I was off. There's a physicist turned chef who said, you missed a term in your calculation. There's the radiative energy from the air itself. Just the radiative, not just the touching of the pizza with the molecules, but photons, infrared photons coming in. So that way, it'll heat the pizza in like 2 seconds instead of 9 seconds. So I said, damn, I missed that effect. I was so sure, I'm proud of my calculation, and I just got out-geeked in the moment.
How lonely your life must be. We'll be right back with more Neil deGrasse. We'll be right back. Back with Neil deGrasse Tyson. The book is Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. We're at the Starmus Festival in Norway. We have many social media questions for you.
Oh, sure, go for it.
Tara Ritma-Roja, if you got the chance to fly away tomorrow with some aliens to explore the universe's farthest corner without the chance of coming back, would you go?
Ooh, if I bring my family, yeah, we'll just bring the family and not come back. Nope. But if I couldn't bring my family, no, I would stay. I love Trump's exploration, at least for me.
Yolanda Lanago Vandergrift, what do you think is the best things we as humans can do to slow down climate change or better reverse it?
You know, there's some people who thought seriously about this because you're told so many different things, paper or plastic, electric or carpool or not. And some of that can just be confusing because if your heart is in the right place, you want to do the right thing. And so I didn't have the expertise to compile this, but they did. Forgive me, I forgot the name of the book. But it is a list, a ranking of the things you can do in order so that you can have the maximal effect based on what your habits are. And from everything I've seen and heard and read, a change of diet can make a huge difference in eating locally rather than, how far away does your food come from? For example. It'd be great if we had farms on rooftops. Oh my gosh. If buildings had their own built-in farms, systems, imagine transportation wouldn't even be necessary. That's one of the biggest consumers, the biggest carbon footprints out there is transportation for commerce. And if half the commerce is on your roof, food, you got it.
Gabby Galindo. Why don't you run for Congress? We need people like you.
Thank you for that. For me, the issue is not how scientifically literate your congressperson is. It's how scientifically literate is the electorate. If you can get a scientifically literate electorate, I think it would be impossible for them to put someone in Congress who was not also that. And once you do that, you can transform a country overnight.
Altez 99, like Mr. Musk thinks. Are we living in simulation?
I find it hard to argue against that possibility.
Meaning,
you look at our computing power today, and you say, I have the power to program a world inside of a computer. Well, imagine in the future where you have even more power than that, and you can create characters that have, for example, free will, or their own perception of free will. So this is a world, and I program in the laws that govern that world. That world will have its own laws of physics and chemistry and biology. Now, you're a character in that world, and you think you have free will, and you say, I want to invent a computer. So you do. Hey, I want to create a world in my computer. And then that world creates a world in its computer. And then you have simulations all the way down. So now you lay out all these universes and throw a dart. Which of these universes are you most likely to hit? The original one that started it, or the countless simulations, the daughter simulations that unfolded thereafter? You're going to hit one of the simulations. So statistically, based on that argument, which first appeared by a philosopher from Oxford named Nick Bostrom back in the 1990s, right when computers were becoming real enough to think this through, it's hard to argue against the possibility that all of us are not just the creation of some kid in a parent's basement programming up a world for their own entertainment. And then every time something weird happens in the world, some disruptive leader takes charge, and I wonder if that programmer just got bored and had to stir the pot. So they throw somebody in there just for their own entertainment. For me, that's some of the best evidence that we live in a simulation, because this happens every time there's peace and tranquility in the world.
but if it's true, what can we do about it? If, like the Truman movie, or was that, we're in that.
Yeah, well, he can try to escape by going in the Truman movie to go through the barrier.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you were programmed by somebody, no, there's nothing you can do.
So what difference does it make if I'm programmed by someone?
I guess
since I don't know it.
I guess it doesn't make any difference at all.
Neil, I would, if I could go one place, I would go in, like to be in your mind for one day. Just to think about the things you think about and wonder about the things
No, okay, I think I'm flattered, but before this interview, we spent some time together, last night over dinner, and I'd never really spent that much quality time with you. You are as curious a person as there ever has been in this world. And to be curious, you have to also be open to learning something new, which you have been and are. And all I am is a curious kid who happens to occupy an adult body. And when you do that, you're a scientist. So you're an honorary scientist based on your curiosity alone.
I have I asked Stephen Hawking what is something he doesn't know about, and he said women.
Oh.
Why, and this is the greatest question mankind has never answered, that Neil Tyson can answer.
Maybe.
Why does peanut butter go so well with jelly?
Yeah, I think...
Now think about it astrophysically.
Yeah, no. So I've thought about this.
I'm sure you have.
Long ago. And I think what we have found is that in the traditional senses that we think of, a taste,
yes.
Sweet, sour, salty, and now we have the fifth one, umami, all right, which
Stop.
transcends the other four.
Stop.
You want to keep it Brooklyn simple. Okay.
Why does peanut butter go so well with jelly?
Because peanut butter is salty and jelly is sweet, and each of those titillate us. We need salt to live. We need sweets, which has high calorie content, and it's a survival mechanism to be attracted to those two features. This is why we like peanut butter and jelly.
That is the meaning of life. Our guest has been Neil deGrasse Tyson. His book is Astrophysics for People in a Hurry. We're both in Trondheim, Norway. Believe it? Thanks for joining us.